Hello, friends, and welcome to Dandies, a podcast where each episode, two friends share a recommendation with one another. We talk about what we liked, what we would change, and try not to judge each other too much over our bad taste. This week, we kill a lot of goats. I mean a lot of goats. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Sipping Smooth Drinks podcasts. I'm Sweet Baby J here along with my daddy Willie, and we're about to get up in your ear holes with our wet mouth sounds.
Wet mouth sounds. I've got my prerequisite 1,024 drinks. Right now I'm sipping on a bold fizzy lemon straight from Aldi.
I have a wet and warm cherry bubbly. It's been sitting for about an hour because I took a nap earlier. I like it at room temperature sometimes just to make myself feel something.
Oh, okay. Seriously, I actually have to say, I don't like cold water. I'm being completely serious about this. I prefer lukewarm water. I have this, pretty classic Nalgene water bottle that I usually have filled with great tap water. And I just let sit. And I just drink it until it's dry. I refill it from the tap, and then I just let it get lukewarm again. It's much better than drinking just straight cold water. Ice, not a fan of it.
These aren't normal things that humans say, Will.
Well, I don't want anyone to think that I'm have normal natural opinions on anything. I just like lukewarm water. What can I say?
You don't like peanut butter sandwiches. You don't like cold water, which is just like if you're in a desert, would you be craving like lukewarm water?
If I were in a desert, yes, I would want cold water. Okay. But I don't live in a desert. I live in, the capitalist hellscape of America. So yes, I will enjoy my lukewarm water because it's the only thing that makes me feel anything.
I'm starting to grow suspicious of you. You're feeling a little Elon Musky here to me. A little bit too detached from humanity.
Elon Musk is not someone I want to be compared to at all whatsoever. I actually think very, very lowly of that guy. But anyway, welcome to Dandies.
Yeah, you actually want to fight me right now. Welcome.
For sure. Man, we're back in the trap, as they said. Just the two of us, back to basics. How it normally is. It feels a little lonely, now that our friend Frederick isn't here.
Yeah, there's a void where his good opinions were.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, last episode was, of course we said over and over again, was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed having him on. And for me, it was so sweet. You two got to have a deep, nuanced discussion about game design. And I got to just, kick back, take it easy, sip my fizzy water. And, it was like a vacation for me. Totally want to have Frederick back. I think I'm open up to the idea of us having more guests in the future. I wonder if the Dandy Dogs out there want that as well. I wish that they would, let us know through like commenting or, tweeting at us. Let us know if last week's guest episode is something that you'd like a little bit more of.
Yeah, I got to break it to you. I think we already have a couple of people rearing to go in the form of our girlfriends.
That's true. Yeah. She keeps saying that she wants to be on the podcast. I don't actually know if she's being serious. I wish that she would just, sit down and be serious about whether she wants to be on here or not.
Tristan is actually like very aggressive about her need to be on here, mostly because she has a lot of corrections and like mansplaining to do for us. She's very upset about some of our stances.
It's about time someone came on here and corrected us, I think. But hey, I have a question for you. Question of the week. I'm taking the reins on this one. I actually have a bit of a serious question for you this week, if you would like to hear it.
Yeah, hit me with it.
So, all right. we are now officially professional, experienced podcasters. I believe this is our 19th episode that we're doing. We've been in the game for years now. We are venerable veterans of the industry. So I want to know. Both of us are fans of podcasts. That was part of the inspiration for us to start this Dandies. I want to know, now that you're into it, do you find yourself emulating like your favorite podcasters, like mannerisms, way of speaking, way of like organizing and formulating opinions? Or do you think that you've already developed your own style of podcasting, so to speak? Do you find yourself emulating anybody you like?
So in the beginning, I was worried that would be a thing, mostly whenever we were like coming up with our I guess our structure. And I can say here and there, I can find some speech patterns that I lean into that are akin to some of the stuff I listen to. But I think for the most part, I have to think so differently for this. And like a lot of these topics are so specific that I don't think I do actually. I think we kind of talked about this before, but whenever we were talking about how we were like at our worst point right now and I'm only going to like improve from here, we were kind of like joking about it at the time. I really do believe that to a certain extent. I think that we are at the point in like the podcasting thing that we're still forming identities and personalities that, we're willing to present to people. And I don't think I'm emulating anyone right now. I think I'm just like doing a very good job of being a noob to this.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that you're looking at it that way. I have to be honest, I am heavily emulating a lot of people, and I feel a little conscious about it. I'm definitely more comfortable with doing this podcasting and the back and forth and formulating opinions and trying to speak clearly, work on my diction. But like a lot of my mannerisms, like jokes that I'm making, I am just lifting wholesale from other podcasters. I feel now that I'm at the point where I'm comfortable enough with the process that I can start like identifying those when I see them and trying to go in a different direction. I'm just curious, like, you don't have to say which podcasters you feel that you occasionally emulate, but like, we haven't really had this conversation, on the podcast. What are your favorite podcasts? Like when you think of yourself being as a successful podcaster, who do you wish you were more like, in that respect?
So not necessarily in terms of politics, because I think he's a little bit more middle ground than I would like, but I really like his mostly neutral coverings of like history, but like Dan Carlin.
Sure, yeah.
I really like his podcast. I like that he's a really good he's really good at making something feel cinematic in the podcast format, which is like hard. Like he injects a lot of personality and gravitas in what he's talking about, and I think part of that's just being like a good storyteller. I like got a lot of respect for that. But outside of that, I would say people that I aspire to be as good as, I'd say probably like anyone that is with like MinMax, the gaming podcast. I think they're all like super comfortable and like just very good at talking about the things they're interested in, and they don't feel a lot of hesitance to express their opinions. And I think that's like a baseline that I want to at least hit. And because I think that comfort improves the podcast. Like making podcasts is just supposed to be like very listenable, very like chill thing that you can have going on for hours at a time. And I think that comes with being comfortable about talking about your opinions. But I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I remember you saying back when we were starting this, I asked you like, what are like the podcasts that you like the most that you would. I probably didn't say this, but I was kind of thinking of it. Who do you feel most comfortable emulating? And I remember you showing me MinMax, so I listened to an episode or two of that. And I also remember you sending me Blank Check, which is another one that I thought was really well produced, but just isn't my type of podcast. Do you find yourself like emulating anything from Blank Check?
I think some of our structure is owed to Blank Check, whether subconsciously or consciously on my part. Mostly because their episodes are topic based. Like they're always covering a specific movie. They're not like covering a swath of movies in the industry in one episode. It's always focused on one like director's work. And I think some of our structure borrows from that, and that we're talking about like, a very specific topic or a very like game, movie, whatever it is, like each episode. So like in that sense, I think that like that's something that I think would come from Blank Check. But I think that the way we actually like talk about these things and how our conversations end up going is more divorced from that. I definitely think there's inspiration there, but it's hard to say emulation because I feel like to me, emulation is that you're like, it's your goal to be like those things. Whereas like inspiration is more like it gave me an idea for a variation of that thing. And I think that that's where we're at.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, for me, that's a really great way of putting that. I emulate my favorite podcaster, Merlin Mann, a lot, almost to an embarrassing degree. If I ever, become successful at this or, keep doing this forever and ever, I really cringe on the idea of like looking back and seeing how much I've been emulating him. And the way that you said it makes a lot of sense. I find him to be very, and I'm talking about him as a like presenter, as a performer on the podcast, not the structure of his podcast.
Yes.
But I do find myself emulating him a lot because I find him to be a very witty and very funny person. And I do want to be as witty and funny as him. And maybe that's part of where some of that is coming from. But I just thought it was an interesting discussion. It's definitely something that I want to do, is to continue to develop my own style and just become more comfortable with all of this. But we can still appreciate the classics, so to speak, appreciate the shoulders of the giants we stand on, right?
Yeah, I mean, like most comedians are trying to be Andy Kaufman or, what's his name? The guy with the bug eyes. He was an older dude. He was really popular in the 80s and 90s.
Rodney Dangerfield?
Yeah, Rodney Dangerfield. You have, no, like
that is
like,
not who I thought you were going to pull out of your hat.
No. Well, it's just like whenever you listen to comedians talk about their inspirations, you have those types come up all the time. Like the George Carlins and Rodney Dangerfields and stuff like that. Like everyone has someone that to some degree they are like a spin off of. I mean, even you could make an argument that to some degree Jim Carrey takes a lot of cues from Charlie Chaplin, like the brand of humor, like the self-degrading, really off the wall humor type stuff, everyone is borrowing from somewhere. It's just about what you bring to the table. Like all the games in a genre, like if you're wholesale copying something, that's where it becomes a problem. I don't think there's anything wrong with being inspired by and making it work in your own way,
Right. I totally hear you. When we end the episode, we can't say "button it up" anymore because I literally am just stealing that from Merlin Mann. So
what are you doing?
We gotta come up with another thing.
Let's zip it up. There it is.
Stick a fork in it. It's crispy. Yeah, but just interesting topic. I think we were talking about this before we started the podcast, not to talk about the show on the show, which is another Merlin Mann line that I just lifted from him. But we were talking about those percentages, like it's those like 1% to 2% things that you can think about and change that take a good podcast from a great podcast. And I think that I'm just now at the point where I want to start thinking about those 1%, 2% things to really take this Dandies to the next level, because I really love doing the show and I really want to be the best that it can be. And maybe it's cringe to talk about this on the show, but I want this to be something we can really be proud of and something that the Dandy Dogs love to tune into every episode.
No, I'm totally with you, and I think that like that's how you grow the podcast, is you just figure out what you're good at and you try to increase those like little points, And marketing, we're bad at marketing right now.
That being said, do you want to talk about killing goats?
Yeah, let's talk about killing greatest of all times. Is that what we're talking about?
I think so. So, all right. So this episode is my exhortation, and this is a game a lot like Jordan does. I've had this one in my back pocket for a while. I love this game, even though it's not the biggest AAA title release. I'm talking about Goat of Duty. That's right. It's Call of Duty with goats. There's nothing else to say. But yeah, just to give a little background information on this, this game was released summer of 2019, so that's like, what, about a year and a half that's been out. Developed by the studio 34 Big Things. I don't think they've done anything else of note, but there's that. Published by Razor Games. It's pretty bare bones. It's a multiplayer arena shooter, and it doesn't take itself very seriously. It really leans into the, a silly aesthetic, really leans into like, oh, it's goats, lol, and does a couple of interesting things with that. Has some exaggerated physics that really play up the silliness of the goat part. First, I want to just disclose to everybody, I am ranked 131st globally in this game. So I might be a bit of a pro gamer, but there's a lot going on with this game. I was really excited to show this to Jordan, and I gotta know, Jordan, how'd you feel about this game?
So first of all, man, I got to give you congratulations. When we were playing together a few days ago, you were like 170 something ranked globally. You've really come a long way, and I have full faith in your ability to climb to number one, especially with like next to no one playing this game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can only climb up if you're playing with other real people. And the fact is, if you're only playing occasionally, you won't find people. I was only able to climb up that much because I was playing it so much this week that I was, inadvertently running into other people. But yeah, so I might just sit at 131 for a while after this. But again, Jordan, how'd you feel about this game?
I'm gonna go ahead and like kind of go back to what. It's interesting to me that you're coming back around with another arena shooter. Like you're trying to make a point about something here. Like you have some kind of vendetta against arena shooters. But that aside, I like what it's going for, and I am sad. As generic as that sounds, I'll dig into it a little bit more in a second. But like, I am sad that it is not being played more by more people, because my first takeaway was like, I don't know how much of a game this is for me. But the more I played of it with you, and then, in the time that I played by myself, it's a super tight game mechanically. Like it feels good to play, and the shooting shoots good, which is a very like technical phrase. I think that was the biggest surprise that I had. Was I was expecting it to kind of control like a little sloppily like Goat Simulator, and maybe that's where it was taking its multiplayer cues from. Like it was trying to be a multiplayer version of that, which I thought would be entertaining in its own right. But it's actually like seems to have pretty good net code. It is really fast paced and like mobility driven, and the guns feel great. And it's also really goofy, like you said. It was one of those things where, like, as I was playing it, I was like, I think I would really enjoy this if this had, like, if it had a good player count.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said there. This is, for me, a very fun game. And there are limitations with the game currently that are really unfortunate. There's some gameplay stuff. There's health of the game, player base stuff. But overall, this is a very fun game, and it saddens me that it's not as popular as I wish it was. But why don't we talk about the aesthetic of this game to kind of give a backdrop of what the gameplay is set into. This is a very silly game. Would you agree?
As the name would suggest, it is definitely not playing it serious.
Right. Yeah. Taking a lot of cues from Goat Simulator, as you mentioned before, and these are not created by the same company. It's not like a spiritual successor in that sense, but it definitely plays up the goatiness of the game. It plays into the fact that it's just funny that you're playing as a goat. So I want to ask you, Jordan, are goats funny?
Objectively, yes. The fact that when they yell, they sound like elderly women. Yeah, they're hilarious.
I think so. And I do enjoy the aesthetic of this game. The silliness doesn't really rub off on you after a while. It's pretty fun. It's really lighthearted. I think that does a lot to kind of make it not overstay its welcome, so to speak. And I also think another part of that is that it's kind of, once you're used to it, it's kind of easy to look past the aesthetic and get to the gameplay. The aesthetics there for you to enjoy. Like the bleeding as you're running around, the jumping, the exaggerated jumping physics really leans into goats being able to jump. The fact that guns are held by a robotic arm that's strapped to the back of the goat, and they aren't actually, so they're running around on all fours like a goat would do. The fact that there's levels like a slaughterhouse, that I'm sure goats wouldn't want to be in. You can enjoy that, but it's also kind of easy to look past that to what I consider to be the good gameplay.
Yeah, so that's something that, like, whenever we talk about good gameplay, especially on like video games like this, where they're hinging part of their marketing on just something that's really like off the wall and silly, is that what, like, you have to consider that when you're playing, you're mostly focusing on the crosshair and what's on the other side of that, and then the mechanics that are around that. Like, when you're playing the game, I don't know how much you're actually like paying attention to your own goats. Or even the fact that the other players are goats. I mean, like, might register here or there, but for the most part, it's the mechanics of the game that you're mostly focused on. And I think that, like, this game in particular, it seems like the goat part was just to lure people in, if that makes sense. Like that,
yeah, like a hook.
Yeah, that's the hook. But there is actually like a really worthwhile like foundation there, which is just like really smooth, like competitive gameplay. Like I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the netcode is like really damn good for something that like I like, we're gonna reference stupid gamer terms and stuff like that, but like ping, which is like the rate at which like your computers was responding to a server. It determines how smooth a game can be. Like if on your screen you're shooting at an enemy and like you hit them, but on their screen you didn't, you'll have some issues there. Well, in this game there wasn't a lot of that. It was all like pretty straightforward. Like it just seems like a lot of attention was given to the actual gameplay, and I like it just shows like while playing it, I guess. But
sure. Well, yeah. Well, let's just go ahead and get into the gameplay, which is the core of this. This is a pretty bare bones arena shooter. It has your normal game modes, a free for all, a team deathmatch, which is called Herd Wars. There's some other special ones. There's like a territory capturing one. There's a gun deathmatch where you cycle through all the guns. Pretty standard stuff. A lot of inspiration from Quake, but this is not super tight gameplay like Quake is, and that's why it's really popular with competitive players. The way that I want to describe the gameplay of this is arcadey. It's it feels good, and it's loose enough to like the gameplay is loose enough to where you can have fun with it. But if you want to take it seriously, you can, because like you were saying, netcode's good. Guns shoot well. It's just fun to play if you want to approach it casually, but you can also take it a bit more competitively if you really feel like you want to.
Yeah, and I think that's like the people who made this game like seem to know what they were doing. They had like a good hook, like we talked about, and they have like gameplay that's like that's on the level that they have the intention to like kind of keep you in it. And like you were telling me that at one point they even like made the game like free for everyone to play, and that's how like they got like a good like surge in players and stuff. But like, and then like on a gameplay like level, it's one of those things that it's like easy to pick up and play because it plays like you said, it's bare bones, it's very stripped down. So it's like a lot of the other games that you would have played, like your Overwatch or like Diaboticals or like Unreal Tournament, where it's just like very straightforward like focused control sets. So like, new players can come in, play it, enjoy it, laugh at the stupid goats, and then like your more competitive players could go like real deep on it.
Oh, like me, yes.
Yes, like your pro gamers like Will.
Yeah, Diabolical is not for new players. They try to say that it is, and they try to get new players in, but there's a wall. And this game takes arena combat and removes that wall. There are two special abilities that I want to highlight that kind of tie into the goat hook. Is that you can press shift to do like a ramming attack, as goats do. They ram, and it does do a certain amount of damage. We were talking about this. It's not a lot. It's about, if you start out with 100 health, it does about like 30. It does like a third of what your natural health would be. So it's not impossible to kill somebody with ramming, and I think you get an achievement for doing it the first time. But you can ram, as goats do. You can ram mid-air, so you can jump and make a really floating into the air jump and then dash in the air to give yourself a little bit more mobility. So there's that. And then there's also a really cool mechanic that doesn't play very well, but you can also play dead. And you found this out the first time you tried to reload one of your weapons, right?
Yeah, and I think that's something, this is going to kind of tie into something we're going to talk about a little bit later on. But I think that like mechanics like that, like the playing dead and maybe even taking cues from stuff like Goat Simulator and getting like some kind of like, this is me just kind of like thinking a little bit like about how you could make games like this a little bit more, I guess a little like have even more staying power, but like introducing mechanics like the sticky tongue from like Ghost Simulator or something like that. But the goofy aspects of this game, like playing dead, I feel like should be more integrated into the combat than they are. They should be more important. And I don't know how you make that more important, because I'm a stupid podcaster who's like critiquing this game, but I think that that's part of the appeal of this. Like whenever I discovered that you could play dead, it brought me joy. I want to keep that and I want it to be good. But then you were telling me like you use it like the first or second time and then you forget about it.
Yeah, I think there are two reasons for that. One, if you play the game for more than an hour, you can absolutely tell the difference between who is playing dead and who is actually dead.
Yeah, they explode, right?
Right, exactly. And it's an arena combat, situation. It doesn't match what you need to do well in arena combat. You need to always be moving. You need to be picking up items. You need to be shooting at your opponent as much as possible. So there is a kind of incongruence there. I love the fact that it exists, but yeah, it's kind of just useless. And I just really wish that there was a better way to kind of integrate it into the game, just like you said. But I mean, what other game can you reasonably do that in? This is like the perfect game to have something like that in this. So it was a great idea, but poor execution on there, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe it was like a joke from the developer to like, oh, you're trying to reload your gun and your goat just does the silly thing, but because R is the reload button in every other shooter. I like, so that crossed my mind, but like I think in general it was maybe like something that they were hoping players could fake other players out with, but yeah, just doesn't happen.
Right, yeah. And there's one game mode that I really want to highlight, and that's the Fuss Row Arena mode, which is a play on the Skyrim thing. We didn't talk about this aesthetic, but yeah, this game makes a lot of overt references to other games, like to the point where it almost feels like copyright infringement, especially with the costumes, or goat stooms as they call it. Well. Yeah, all sorts of parts of the game are just like silly references to other games. So there's that angle to the aesthetic. But with the Fuss Row Arena mode, it literally takes the silly physics and cranks it up to 11, where the whole point is to knock other goats off of the stage. And once they fall off the stage, a lot like a Smash Brothers stage, if you knock them off the stage, they die. But there are also these blocks that will automatically kill a goat if you knock it into it. So you use a gun that's kind of like a force gun. It kind of pushes your opponent goat like way back, pushes them back, but they can recover if they don't go completely off off the stage. And then you can also ram into other goats and that'll knock them back. And that mode is a lot of fun, but you need lots of players to be able to really have fun with it. It's not a great duel mode for 2 players.
Yeah, so that was definitely the most fun I had while we were playing the game. That and like gun game, which I enjoy in most shooters. But like First Row Arena is like, you could make an entire game based around that. I feel like it was just a lot of. It's like a unique enough gameplay concept. It kind of reminds me of like the paint from Splatoon, like where you're like trying to like, you know, cover the most of the battlefield. Like it makes you play a first person shooter differently than you normally would, and I think that's enough of a hook for most people to like get hooked onto it, you know.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I kind of disliked it at the beginning. I preferred to do the normal death match, but kind of coming back to it in preparation for this episode, I actually found myself going back to it way more than I used to. Yeah, it's just a bright spot in this game, and something, if they wanted to reiterate on this game or do a sequel or something, I think that is something they should definitely focus on and do iterations on, because there's a lot of fun to be had there. They just gotta find that fun and bring it to the forefront.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, okay, we keep referencing it, but let's just get into address the elephant in the room. This is a dead game. As much as I hate to say it, no one is really playing this game. Which is, I mean, as I'm sure everyone knows, is a death sentence for something that is a specific multiplayer combat focused game. I did a little bit of research for this episode. I know that's surprising for everyone. I went onto Steam charts and found out that for the last couple of months, this game has been averaging averaging 9 players per month on Steam, and you can imagine how silly that is for a multiplayer arena combat game. When you were playing this on your own, Jordan, were you able to really find other players to play with?
So I played a little bit today before the podcast, and there was actually like 4 or 5 other players playing that I got into, but there were no other matches running that I could see. And for reference, 9 players per month. This is not me like dunking, though this does make me feel like some sense of pride. We have more listeners per month than they have players.
Oh man! Now,
that's a scary stat, isn't it?
It is. Now this game does have, I won't call it robust, but like a pretty interesting bot system that you can play around with different strengths. And you can play bots you can set a number of bots to play in a match, and those bots will kind of bow out when new people come in, which is cool. I enjoy playing against the bots because I get to play this game. Now, would I rather play with players? Of course. But, like, you can play this game. The bots are not terrible to play against, but this is a dead game. And I'm really curious as to why this game is as dead as it is. I'm sure that you probably have some ideas on this, Jordan, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw one out there. This is a free-to-play world. Would you agree?
Yes and no.
Like, the gaming landscape is focused on free-to-play experiences. That's where the gaming zeitgeist is. That's where the money in gaming is these days.
It really just depends. Like, because like you would think that, but once you start looking at like patterns and stuff, you'll find that like I think it's the easiest way to generate money. But the number of failed free-to-play games out there, like, I think hurts that percentage a lot more than you would think. I think the biggest games kind of happen, like League of Legends and stuff like Genshin Impact, tend to be free-to-play, and like that's kind of part of the feature. Like you get a lot of people in, but I think the fail rate on free-to-play games is actually really high.
Right. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, but you can't reach like the pinnacle of gaming zeitgeist without being free to play.
Yeah, I think you got a point there.
Among Us would not have become the phenomenon it did if you had to pay to play. Fortnite would not have reached that. League of Legends would not have reached that without being free to play. But I totally hear what you're saying. This is also a paid game. Normally, it is $10 to buy this game. I guarantee that the people who made this game did put in $10 per person's worth of work to make this game. But I mean, this is just a multiplayer arena shooter. It has a really fun and silly hook, but at the end of the day, I mean, is that enough for people to pay $10? And I'll be honest, I didn't pay $10 for this game. I got it when it was for a weekend. It was given away for free, and that's when most people played this game. I saw on the Steam charts that the month that this went free to play, it jumped from about 600 people playing the game to like multiple thousands of players. I think it was like 3,000 or something like that. And then it just dropped off so much from that one time that it was free. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. If they want this game to like get a second wind or something like that, you just can't charge at least like $10. Yeah, maybe you could charge $1 or something like that. But yeah, you just can't charge $10 for a game like this in this free to play world.
Not without name recognition, no. I think you have to be attached to like a major studio and have like a lot of marketing attached to it, or have like good word of mouth going. I think my answer for why this game is dead is like a mixture of two things. One being like, why was Among Us popular when it was? I mean, I got to correct you slightly on Among Us. It was free to play on phones, but it was $5 on PC. So it's one of those things where I think it's about what the streamers are playing to a certain extent, because that's where you see a lot of spike in popularity. You have like one big streamer plays a game one day, suddenly that game is just going off the rails. It only takes Ninja having a celebrity on one to make Fortnite take off and be like the biggest game in the world. And then, it only took one streamer to make Among Us the most played game for 6 months. I think that there are trends like set by these streamers, and like God of Duty could be dead now, but like, say a streamer and like, gets a group together and they play something, sometime in the next month, it could suddenly be one of the top 10 games on Twitch. It's just, I think there are a lot of games right now and people want to play what their friends are playing. And I think it kind of is just as simple as that. It's just like, what is it? What is the new hotness? And multiplayer games suffer greatly from a lack of exposure, which is my second point, which is that like I just never heard about this game before you showed it to me. And I think a large part of that is just because, it's coming from a small studio that probably doesn't have the largest marketing budget. They probably couldn't afford Steam front page space before they went free, or couldn't afford it like constantly. Mm-hmm. And, it's one of those things that like, if you are hinging your game on a lot of people playing it like multiplayer games do, it's a death sentence to like come to the marketplace without a marketing budget.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The trends the streamers does make a huge thing, but also, I mean, price would tie into that. Among Us had a free option to play when it took off. If Go to Duty is $10 when the PewDiePie and like a random U.S. Congressperson play Go to Duty together, if the game is $10, that's going to hamper how much it takes off past then. So yeah, it is like a combination of all this stuff.
Yeah, it will, but I mean, I think my general point is that streaming is where you see the peaks. Even if it doesn't reach as high as something as like Among Us or League of Legends, like the game could go from dead to being like generally well played overnight. You could suddenly have like hundreds of matches going at once.
Yeah, that's true. We have to think about what is success. What is a second wind? I'm thinking that it needs to be. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. A game like this can be populated and be a success without it being like the
top
biggest
20 on Twitch. Yeah.
It kind of feels that way these days, though. Like, to your point, if you aren't top 20, you're just dead. And then it's either positive or negative. It's some sort of feedback loop that makes it to where, well, no one plays it because no one's playing it, which means less people are playing it. And yeah, I remember back when Fall Guys was like the hot new thing, and then Among Us became the next new thing, and people were automatically talking as if Fall Guys like was no longer a good game, that it was no longer successful because it wasn't. Yeah, but it was. So you're right. This doesn't need to be the top of the charts to be a successful game. But if you're making a game like this, is it completely wrong to say that if you aren't top 20 on Twitch that you did fail? It just kind of seems like we live in that kind of world these days.
I think you can feel that way, but then you got to remember, like, Overwatch isn't a top 20 game anymore, but it's still one of the most played multiplayer games in the industry, and they're still supporting it as a result. Like, they're, and albeit that's Blizzard and a big pub, like a big studio, but if you have, like, every month you have 300,000 concurrent players, which isn't like a lot in the multiplayer space, that's a lot for a small studio. Like, that's money. People are going to pay for ad space for that. And
Yeah.
like, I think that it requires the right amount of exposure in the right amount of hooks. There's got to be some sort of progression, and I think that that's something that hampers arena shooters in general. Is their nature where they want to be like, pick up a gun and fight with it focused, and there's not really any like sort of like gameplay progression in terms of like your stats or upgrades
Right.
or anything like that. I think that's where arena shooters kind of hurt themselves, is that they don't have like progression, like carrots on the end of the sticks for like players to work towards outside of like cosmetics. And I think that that's just an evolution that genre needs to make if they want to get like you're saying, like both Diaboticals and Go to Duty in this situation. If they want to get that second win, they got to lean into like what is going to keep people in the game.
Well, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, let's just go ahead and talk about that. Arena shooters are kind of going the way of the dinosaur these days. Diabolical was kind of a new attempt to create a hyper competitive arena shooter that eschewed the normal trends that we've been seeing in like shooters like Overwatch, where it's like heavily character based and all the characters have different abilities that they can use to certain effects. I guess Fortnite doesn't really have this, but Apex Legends really leans into you play as a character. League of Legends, their whole thing, they're basically just a character factory, right? With all different, abilities and ways to play. And, this is the old type of arena shooter where it is all just the same. You are on the same, you are the same as everyone, and the only thing that separates you is your skill. There just isn't much room for that these days, because I think the market has shown that people want that ability to connect to the character that they're playing. Fortnite does that through like extensive skins and like IP branding, stuff like that. And this game just doesn't have any of that. So unless you're there for, you just really enjoy the goat hook, or you really want to be competitive at this game, you're absolutely right. It's missing all of those modern. I don't want to use the word amenities, but those modern amenities that make players really connect with your game. And this kind of does just miss that. If they want this game to get a second wind, I really think we should see a development on that front where you can really connect with your quote goat.
Yeah, arena shooters need evolution that is more than just cosmetics, I think, because like something like Overwatch and like MOBAs like League of Legends and Dota 2 have in common is that they have different play styles. Like there are characters you'll never touch because you don't like the way they play, and that makes the characters you do play as feel more personal. Like, hey, this is my character. This is the thing I connect with. And it makes a game that you are more willing to come back to in that sense. And then and even back to MOBAs, there are micro progressions within the game itself. You start at 0 and you level up, and you have like different like upgrade paths you can choose as you level. There are all these solutions to personalizing your play style and the games that you play. And I think that it's just like a situation where like arena shooters need to evolve in the same way that 2D side scrollers evolved. Like, if you look at like Mario, like if you had told someone in 1995 that that they were making a 3D Mario game, would they have thought that was a Mario game? Like would they have still considered that like a platformer or in that Mario genre? It like you can still maintain the identity that arena shooters had previously, like in terms of how like their levels are designed or maybe how they like pick up guns. But I think that you need to go like the next step further and think about like if you're in 2021, if you're a game developer and you're deciding that you're going to make an arena shooter, you have to think about how your players are engaging with the game and how they're going to continue to like come back to it and what you can do to like encourage that. And like both games have good cosmetics that we're talking about here. Like Go to Duty, as we'll talk about here in a little bit, has some really great costumes, and Diabolicals has a really cute bot customization system. But neither of those, like this is a first person like genre for the most part. Go to Duty kind of gets around that a little bit by giving you like a pseudo third person angle where you can see part of your goat on the screen, but in this fast-paced genre, you're not really looking at that too much. So you have to do something a little extra to give that personalization.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Go to Duty does have an XP system, and that's kind of how I am 131st, global ranked. Go Duty is missing a lot of that. The XP system really does nothing other than rank you, and then also unlock the goat. Sorry, I'm just gonna say costumes. I don't want to say goat students anymore.
It's a bad pun.
Yeah, for sure. They just shoehorned that one in. But the costumes are cool. One last thing I want to highlight with this, how could this game get a second wind is it's been about a year since I first started playing this game. It went free to play about a year ago. Beginning of 2020. It was honestly a part of that big push at the beginning of the pandemic where everything was kind of going for free because we knew, okay, everyone's going to be home for extended periods of time now. We need to, give all this stuff for free to get your attention now that you're just home all the time. I can say there has been absolutely no upgrades, no development happening to this game in the entire year of that. There's no plans for updating, no new maps, no new modes, and that's also something that just seems like you can't do that anymore in this world in 2021. You have to always be growing. You have to always be adding something new. You have to keep bringing in those players and doing seasons, battle passes, just some sort of new content. And this game, I know it's pretty common with new, like smaller studios, but there's just nothing being added to this game. And, like once it's just like with business. As soon as you stop growing, you start dying, and that's what this game has done. So, hopefully this Studio 34 Big Things is like working on maybe a sequel or like something new that's gonna take what they learned from this game and put into something else, because it doesn't seem like they're going to be making anything else for this game. But as soon as they stopped planning on adding anything to this game, that was kind of the execution order right there, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where it's like I get why they're moving on from it because like the player base probably never hit the number that they needed. I imagine that this is not a small studio just based on the production quality of this game because it plays really well. Like we talked about it, it looks like that this had some like time and thought poured into it. So it's one of the, I imagine this game was. Like I have not seen their earnings. I'm not familiar with how big 34 Big Things is, but it does seem like this game was not a profitable game for them with 9 players a month. And I have to imagine they're working on something else, to put food on the table and, money in the bank. I think that that's okay, but I think it's also just kind of another lesson where it's like, the multiplayer space is very crowded and you either need publisher backing or you need to have a marketing presence that is very strong and, hooks to kind of keep it in because live service games require a lot like your point, like they require a lot of updates and a lot of maintenance and you can't ignore that.
Sure, yeah. Hopefully, if they are just done with this game, hopefully they, paid this game off and they made enough in the bank to make something even bigger and better. So
Yeah, hopefully so.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what 34 Big Things does after Go to Duty, but I'm still kind of holding out hope, crossing my fingers that maybe we'll get an update for Go to Duty and this game can get that second win that we've seen other games get. All that being said, this is a fun experience. It sucks that you have to pay $10 full price to get this game, but this is another game that I just wish people would try. There's a lot of fun to be had here.
Yeah, it's definitely a shame whenever it's like this well made. It's kind of stunning that I hadn't heard about it beforehand, because when you gave it to me, I made a joke about it being shovelware, and I was like, whenever we first started like our first match, I was really shocked at like the quality that this game had put into it, and I think maybe that's another reason why it didn't succeed, is maybe people just thought the same thing I did. Go to Duty, that sounds like a cheap thing, and it just wasn't.
That's a great point. Yeah, the hook could have worked against itself and made people realize that made them think that was shovelware. I don't think the shovelware title is too far off from what this is, but yeah, it is a little derogatory in a way that this game doesn't deserve. But I have some quick hits if you are interested in some delving into our favorites from this game.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, in the like deathmatch modes, what gun did you prefer?
I think for sure it was the saw gun. I've talked before about my love of projectile weaponry in video games, because it adds like another layer to combat, which is like, aiming ahead, and it makes like gunplay in particular that much more satisfying whenever you hit like a headshot, because you were aiming just in head. Yeah, it's one of those things, and like the saw gun in particular was really strong. So it was one of those that like anytime I came across it, I was excited.
Yeah, for sure. All of the guns, and I thought this was a cool part of the gameplay, is that all the guns had a secondary fire mode. If you, instead of left clicking, you right clicked. And I think the saw gun was basically you set like a stationary trap, and if an enemy hit that, they would like spin around and be thrown up into the air. So that I didn't find it that useful, but it was fun to see if like maybe a bot was able to pull it off on somebody. But yeah, the saw gun was pretty cool, and how you could just decapitate a goat with a headshot. That was a lot of fun.
Yes. What about yours?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty safe to say that the rocket launcher, in true Quake fashion, the rocket launcher is probably the best gun in the game. If you are any good at using like Quake style rocket launchers in other games, you're going to have a lot of success with the gun, with the rocket launcher, especially since a natural like a straight on hit is enough to kill a goat at normal full health. So when I like unlocked my potential playing this game, the rocket launcher was really a integral part of that. But I do think that my favorite gun is the sniper rifle, and sniping with the sniper rifle in this game feels very good. And it's kind of what I'm thinking of when I say that this game is arcadey. Like you don't have to be super accurate with the sniper rifle, but you do up into a point. It, like you keep saying, the guns shoot really well, and I think the sniper rifle in particular feels really good to shoot, even if you're not the most accurate with your shots. But yeah, sniper rifle in a level that really like lended itself to snipering was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those guns that whenever you were telling me where it was located on the map so I could give it a go, it was one of those things where I thought to myself, like, yeah, this is a gun that would be tweaked if this were still a like game that a lot of people were playing and they were making like weekly adjustments to it, because it's very strong.
Yeah, for sure. What was your favorite level?
Mountains in space. It was like a bunch of floating platforms that you have to kind of like jump between, and like one large platform that was kind of awkwardly positioned underneath all of the smaller platforms.
Yeah. And
all of the guns are positioned throughout. It was mostly just like the chaos of that area and how vertical it was. I really enjoyed that one. Plus the aesthetic. Whenever you and I were looking at the levels, that was one of the first things I said. It was like, can we check out that Mountains in Space level? And it lived up to my expectations.
Yeah, that's a good one. Great level for sniping, by the way. Yeah, that's a good one. My favorite level, I believe, is Desert of Lambs, which is the
Hmm.
one with all the. It's like the desert one. It has all the columns. It has the huge building on one side of the level that has a sniper rifle on top. And if especially if you're playing with bots, it's very easy just to sit up there and just snipe to your heart's content all day. With a honorable mention to the Slaughterhouse, which I think is the like classic. It's like the Dust 2 of Goat of Duty. Like that's the classic arena shooter thing. If they ever did a Goat of Duty 2, I would be very surprised if Slaughterhouse didn't have like a spiritual successor or just like came back with an update, because I really do think it's the iconic level.
Yeah, they like I think we played one match on that, and I think I enjoyed it a good bit. One of those things we were like shoveling a bunch of these games, that night. So I'm having like a little bit of trouble remembering it, but I do remember like the deserty environment and stuff like that, and having fun in it.
Yeah, for sure. So we've been mentioning the costumes or goatstumes. Thought I'd try it one more time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
they're all very silly video game references. I know you probably didn't see a whole lot of them. But what was your favorite that you saw?
I actually looked up the total list because I was very humored by them. So this is one of those things that, like we referenced earlier, where this seems like they're gonna get like sued for having some of the costumes in the game because they look just straight ripped from the properties that they're from. My favorite one, without a doubt, I like I said, looked at the total list of them. It's just the Sailor Moon one. Just a goat in a Sailor Moon costume is just goofy as shit, and it's so funny. Especially like seeing you run around in it. It was hilarious.
That is
Honorable mention to Solid Snake.
Oh yeah, Solid Snake's good. I like the major one from Ghost in the Shell, but yeah, the Sailor Moon one is just so silly and so out of place that yeah, it once I unlocked it, and it's one of the later ones that you unlock, it very quickly became my favorite, and I'm rocking it to this day. But
Yeah,
yeah,
kind of without comparison, in my opinion.
yeah. Go to Duty, has some issues, has some player based issues, but overall, a very fun game, and I'm really glad that you enjoyed it as much as you did. So thank you for joining me on this journey.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking me on it. I enjoyed it a lot, and I also share your sadness that it didn't find a bigger audience.
But do you have an exhortation for me?
Okay, so Will, exhortation time.
Yes.
How do you feel about the year 2011?
I think 2011 was a very good year for me. Kind of had some, bad, personal situations, but I remember it being a pretty good year. That was, you know me, I relate everything to Magic products. I think 2011 was Innistrad. Yeah, that was a great set. Yeah, and then New Phyrexia, which has some of my great my most favorite Magic cards: Gataxian Probe, Dismember, Inkmoth Nexus was in 2011. Yeah, I'd say 2011 was a good year.
I wasn't expecting you to just like launch into a bunch of garbage with that question, but okay. So, how do you feel about obnoxious indie darlings?
I guess I don't really have an opinion on that.
All right, well then I'll go ahead and tell you my exhortation for our next episode is an obnoxious indie darling. Obnoxious in the sense that its fan base is a little much.
Sure.
But we're going to be talking about Super Brothers Swords and Sorcery.
Super Brothers Swords and Sorcery. I have never heard of this.
Oh my god, you were in for it. This is a game that is designed around its soundtrack, and not in like a rhythm way. It won't make sense until you play it.
I may be clued into what this is. Who made the music? Is there like a musician that like was responsible for the soundtrack?
Yeah, Jim Guthrie.
I have heard. I'm a big music guy. I listen to Spotify like all the time. I have heard songs from the soundtrack, but I have nothing. I know nothing about what the game is or any of that. So I've actually heard a little bit of music from this game, but I couldn't tell you anything about it.
Okay, it is. So the entire like concept of the game, and I won't go too deep into it here because that's what the next episode is for, but the entire like concept behind the game was just like building a game around Jim Guthrie's music, and it works really damn well. Next episode we're gonna be diving deep. It's gonna be our first music oriented episode, unless I'm forgetting one. But we're gonna be talking music because it's very important to this game. And it's a 4-hour long experience. It's recommended that you play 1 hour a day. It even like gives you cutoff points. Wow. You can play it in one sitting if you would like, but the developers kind of have it structured in this way for a reason. It started as a mobile game. You can play it on almost anything now.
That's very interesting. It actually wants you to like stop playing after a certain amount of time and like pick it up on a separate day. That's really interesting.
Yes, it takes roughly an hour to get through each of the segments, which are 4 segments, and all of the tracks on the soundtrack are bangers, Will. They're all fantastic, and I am very excited to hear your thoughts on it.
I have so many questions, but I'm just going to play the game because you probably have done the best possible. You probably intrigued me the best possible way on this, so I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to talk about it because as a music person, I know that I am confident that even if you're not a big fan of this thing as a package, you will appreciate what it's doing.
Okay. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Okay. So, anyways, Will, back matter. What did you do since the last time we podcasted?
Oh, yeah. So, okay. The second Wodakoi OVA finally released, and I thought that I'd have to wait months for this thing to be fan subbed, but it's kind of funny. I'm pretty sure that they just took dialogue out of the translated manga and just put it in there, based on panels. So it wasn't a great translation job. It was good enough for me to watch it. So as soon as that was available online, my girlfriend and I sat down and watched it, and it was nirvana. I felt so happy finally getting a new episode of Wodakoi. Back when you watched it for my exhortation, did you watch the first OVA as well?
I did not. We watched the season. We didn't watch the film, if there was one.
Yeah, the OVA is, I believe the first OVA is not on Amazon Prime, which is where Wodakoi streams at. And the second one is also probably not going to be on there. It's just 2 extra episodes. The first one is really sweet, and it's how Kabakura and Koyanagi meet in high school and how they become a couple, and it's really awesome because it centers on volleyball, and I know that you're a huge haiku fan. But the second one, the one that just came out, focused on the 2 characters that we talked about the anime not really focusing on at all, and that's Hirotaka's brother Now, and then Ko. The entire OVA focuses on them, and it's just so sweet, and I just love them to death, and I love Wodakoi so much, so it's really awesome to finally get new Wodakoi content.
Oh yeah, that's exciting. I would love to watch both of those. I'm gonna have to seek them out soon.
Yeah, you would have to quote big air quotes here, seek them out. But that's the thing that I've been doing this week. How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. So I'm actually catching up on announcements that have been kind of revealed over the last few weeks or so. One of my favorite childhood book series, I would actually say at this point, it might even be my favorite book series from whenever I was a kid. I don't know if you've ever heard of Redwall.
The name sounds familiar, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay, so basically it's medieval or fantasy, medieval fantasy forest critters and their society. It's an alternate universe. There aren't any humans. It's a series of books, one-off stories set in this world about Outcast Redwall is about this otter who is a knight, that sort of thing. It's a very light-hearted but dark kind of fantasy series, and it's really damn good. I don't know if you've ever heard of the series Over the Garden Wall.
Vaguely. Again, the name sounds familiar, but I don't know anything about it.
Probably my favorite animated series of all time. It's one season. It will for damn sure be coming up as an exhortation in the future. We just gotta wait for the right time.
Okay.
But the creator of Over the Garden Wall is going to be creating a Redwall Netflix series.
Okay.
It is the most insane combination of things I've ever seen. I could not it is just like the perfect combination, and I'm so excited for it.
That does sound pretty exciting.
Yes, it's just like two of my favorite things, and they're kissing. The other thing that I saw this last week was that there was a Pokemon event where they announced some new upcoming Pokemon properties, like a remake of the Gen 4 Pokemon. It was like Diamond and Pearl, I believe.
Oh, I hadn't heard about this. Oh, yeah, that's huge news.
Yeah, they're getting a remake on the Switch.
Nice.
But the big one is they're finally making a true like Breath of the Wild open world style Pokemon game. And the coolest thing about it is it takes place in like feudal era, like Japan looking like Pokemon. So like the Pokeballs are made of wood and have like these iron clasps that like make them shut and stuff.
Wow.
I'll have to send you a trailer, but it looks fantastic. And that's supposed to be coming out in early 2022. So I'm extremely excited about that game. Like probably like up there with like Elden Ring is the most anticipated thing right now.
I wanted to ask you, did you find that mythical footage of Elden Ring gameplay that everyone's been talking about?
I did, but I didn't watch it. So I don't give unauthorized leaks from my baby studio from software like that time of day. No.
I appreciate your restraint.
No, I respect the vision of like a studio that is actually like cranking out art.
Yeah, for sure.
As pretentious as that sounds. What I've been doing though for the last week, haven't had a lot of free time, but in my free time, I've been playing the new Bowser's Fury expansion for Super Mario 3D World that came out like a week or two ago, and it is delightful. It is fantastic, very lighthearted, very experimental. They take a lot of they make a lot of they take a large departure from traditional Mario level design, and it's a lot of fun. And that's all I'll say about it, because I think I would like to let you borrow my Switch at some point so you can check it out. But we'll talk about that in the future.
Sure. I had heard that you had been playing something like that with one of the younger ones in your household. Is that true?
Okay, so this is like a 2-game package. One of it is like a re-release of Super Mario 3D World, which is like a 4-player co-op game that came out on the Wii U. And it was packaged with Bowser's Fury, or Bowser's Fury was packaged with it, whatever way you want to, post it or like pose that. And Bowser's Fury is a single player experience for the most part. Well, I decided that I was going to play the 3D World portion with one of my girls, Delaney, and we have been butting heads over that experience. It's been a lot of fun, but there's a lot of like sabotaging and someone not wanting to collect everything and deciding to run ahead. But it's been a delight. I love playing it with her. It
sounds like a real burying trash on your island type situation.
Yeah, it really is. But sometimes I think she's doing this stuff intentionally. She is trolling me.
I am totally on the troll Jordan train. I think this is a good idea and a good use of everyone's time.
Yeah, so I've talked a lot at this point. This episode does feel nice and crisp and done. How do you feel about sticking a fork in it?
Yeah, I think this one's crispy. Why don't you go ahead and outro us?
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dandies. You can follow Will on Twitter at AgroRhetoric and myself at ActionPancake. We would love it if you would follow along with our exhortations and stay up to date on all the latest Dandies excitement by following at DisDandiesPod. Join us here next episode for another spin with the Dandies.
Later. Meg sent me a text message. Today is her second day at the Speed Museum. Really great, new chapter of her life. It's really cool. She just sent me a text. They're playing Magic in the break room.
Really?
Who are these yahoos playing Magic in the Speed break room?
So I actually played with a coworker a couple of times. It's not possible to play Magic at work because everyone stops to like ask you questions.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've definitely encountered that myself. Yeah. Is this anything like Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh, dude, the one that gets me is like, so what's the goal here? What are you trying to do right now? And it's like, these cards that are just colors. I'm trying to create more of those and then draw more of them. See, I'm playing Simic. This game is not fun.
No one's having fun. I know. Not that I've had to do this like for a long time, but my go-to answer, I workshopped this for a while. The answer that I eventually came up with is I say, this is basically chess. Only instead of 16 pieces, you have like 10,000 pieces you can choose from. I think that's a pretty good, just a good, simple way to describe it to somebody.
Can I give you like some feedback to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a little pretentious, mate.
I don't care. If I come up as pretentious, they'll leave me alone.
Ah, the old Magic player trick.
I'm not trying to get other people into the game. I'm not trying to make it seem like something that's fun or something that's worth spending your time on. I just want to be left alone and play Tron Mirrors for 3 years straight.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is like Magic players talk about how like, yeah, you hear that expression all the time where they're like, I know this is contrived, but I did come for the Magic and I'm staying for the gathering. They don't want to gather. They just want to hurt people's feelings. For sure.
They just want to make backhanded criticisms of people's sealed deck. That's a story. Okay. So I have a one time, and I've been playing for years at this point. This was like M12 pre-release or something. So I've been playing for a long time at that point. And I was playing a green, like a white-green deck, and it was pretty bad. But I had Archangel of Thune. I don't know if you know that card, but basically yes. I get stuff if I gain life. Mm-hmm. So I played, was it Soul Mender, Soul Herder? It's the 1/1 for 1 that taps and you gain a life.
Yeah, it's not Soul Herder.
And I played it because my deck was weak, and I was just like trying to increase my synergy, just doing that. And it's also just a pre-release. But I played against a guy that I knew was had also been playing for a while, but we didn't know each other. So he has no idea who I am or how long I've been playing. And we play a game, and it doesn't really work out. I lose. Deck was pretty bad. And out of nowhere, he's just like, that's a bad card. You shouldn't be playing that. And I'm like, you motherfucker, why did you make that comment towards me? Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, do not criticize people while they're trying to play a game that they like, like it doesn't matter whether I'm sorry, I'm just getting upset again.
I was gonna say, this is the most heated I've ever heard you before.
It was just such a shitty comment. Like, he should not be making that comment to anybody in any situation. We gotta get off this topic before I just spiral into depression. There are Magic players at the speed, so now I need to find out who they are and duel them for honor.
Not with a deck, but with an actual sword.
Oh yeah, it's the speed, so I'm sure they have some art. They have art swords